Every year, the National Film Preservation Board and the National Recording Preservation Board of America selects 25 works considered culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant for preservation. Among these selections are important films, musical recordings, video broadcasts, and more. None of these are selected based on their popularity or commercial appeal. The selection is more based on their lasting impact on American culture and the risk of permanent loss. The selection process begins with public nominations. Anyone can submit suggestions, ensuring that the public helps to decide what should be preserved and remembered. These nominations are then reviewed by expert advisory board made up of filmmakers and archivists in the National Film Preservation Board. The final list is chosen by the Librarian of Congress, who ensures diversity across genre and era. Once selected, the Library of Congress acts to preserve these works physically and digitally. This happens at facilities like the National Audiovisual Conservation Center, where old film reels, audio tapes, and fragile materials are restored and stored in climate-controlled conditions. I'm not going to bore you with details, but to get an understanding of how much work it takes to store these items, you can Google what are the storage conditions at the National Audiovisual Conservation Center in Virginia. It is quite expensive to preserve these things, but it's worth the investment for any nation that is interested in preserving its stories. The goal is to keep these works alive for future generations. It's all about protecting cultural memory. The Library of Congress ensures that the stories, sounds, images, records, and arts that define America remain accessible to all and safe from disappearance.
In 2024, the National Film Registry of America added films like Beverly Hills Cop from 1984, The Social Network from 2010, and 12 Years a Slave from 2013 for storage in the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. The National Recording Registry 2025's list includes works like Celine Dion's My Heart Will Go On from 1997, Hamilton Original Broadway Cast Recording from 2015, and Amy Winehouse Back to Black from 2006. And yes, it is a great honor for an artist's work to be selected for preservation. It signifies that the work is not only culturally relevant, but worthy of being remembered and protected for future generations, regardless of commercial success. So let's bring this back home. Why is that information necessary in this video?
In early 2025, I began working on a short documentary about a prominent Nollywood figure from the early 2000s. I wanted to trace her career by stitching archival footage like interviews, award show appearances, behind-the-scenes clips, and maybe a few rare TV segments. I was not prepared for how much work it would take to find clips from the late 90s and the early 2000s. The Nollywood figure in question is Genevieve Nnaji, whose first acting role was in the 1980s sitcom Ripples. I went to hell and beyond looking for at least one clip of an 80-year-old Genevieve in that series. All I could find were a few grainy scenes on TikTok and Facebook. Even as I advanced further and needed clips from her early career as an adult, I could not find full interviews or behind-the-scenes footage that showed her on sets. Red carpet content from award shows seemed to be non-existent. Now, mind you, Genevieve Nnaji was arguably the most popular woman in Nigeria from 2001 to 2009, and certainly the most popular actress of that time, only comparable to Patience Ozokwo. If there were no archival footage of her early career, who else is safe? The first screen appearance of one of Africa's most prolific and iconic screen legend is nowhere to be found, basically unavailable to the public. On this same internet, I can easily find clips of 7-year-old Drew Barrymore in E.T. from 1982 or 13-year-old Jodie Foster in The Taxi Driver from 1976.
That experience led me down a rabbit hole of questions. Is anyone preserving the history of Nigerian entertainment? Are the most important works in our film and television history being professionally stored and protected for the future? The clear answer is no, but I wanted to do some research before reaching a conclusion.
I discovered the existence of key institutions like the National Library of Nigeria, the National Archives of Nigeria, and the Nigerian Film Corporation. However, I do not need to step foot into these premises to find out that these bodies are severely underfunded, under-equipped, and largely incapable of fulfilling their job of preserving film reels from the 1970s and 1980s. These institutions exist in name and structure, but their impact and function remain questionable. Also, the National Library and the National Archives of Nigeria are known to store paper documentation and publications like photographs, maps, and illustrations. They have no business with storing motion picture or music recordings. The closest thing we have to a Library of Congress in Nigeria is the Nigerian Film Corporation, an agency that was created with the mandate to foster a thriving film industry rather than preserve old media. So, you see that there is a problem. You don't need a formal audit to recognize the cracks. You feel it in the absence of access when you try to find a classic Nollywood film from the early 2000s, and all you get are low-quality fragments on YouTube. You sense it when legendary albums that shaped Nigerian music history are nowhere to be found in official collections, only passed around on Twitter, if at all. And you see it when iconic photographs, award show recordings, or TV interviews from the 90s are reduced to blurry screenshots or memories shared on Facebook.
Let's take a moment and compare the Instagram presence of the National Art Gallery in Nigeria and the National Art Gallery in Washington, D.C.
Look closely at what each institution is preserving, the scope of their work, and how they present themselves online. Now, I'm not even going to criticize their efforts. In fact, I feel like the National Art Gallery of Nigeria is doing a commendable work, but there is room for growth, especially in how it engages the public and documents cultural heritage. Now, let us draw another comparison. This time, between Nigeria's National Film Corporation and the British Film Institute. Notice the difference in vision, documentation, and presentation. One is an unending collage that is colored with a variety of film history from various decades, while the other is just flyers. But on a more positive note, I commend the consistency. But it is not a page I would love to follow when compared to, say, the BFI. I am sure you get me.
In an era where countries are digitalizing their heritage films and music recordings, Nigeria's cultural memory remains dependent on individual efforts, YouTube upload, and collectors with hard drives. And that, I think, is dangerous.
For a second, imagine we lose the internet forever and every upload is lost. All songs and music videos from more hit records, once available on YouTube, are lost forever. Every episode of Super Story on Facebook disappears. And all the interviews with Tafawa Balewa and Nnamdi Azikiwe floating around Twitter right now can no longer be accessed. I am pretty sure 60% of those projects will be lost forever because no one is actively storing them outside the internet. What this results in is a fragile national memory that is scattered and unreliable. Cultural preservation is more than just pandering to nostalgia. It is done to preserve identity and education. When we lose access to our historical media, we lose the ability to tell our stories on our own terms. We allow others to define our past and in turn, our future. So now I ask, where are the in-depth professional interviews with pioneering Nigerian filmmakers like Amaka Igwe or Obi Rapu? How did they create their first film and what was the state of the industry at the time? Who were the Nigerian screen legends of the 1970s and where are they now? What was the best-selling Nigerian album of the 1980s? And who made it? And what inspired its creation? These are questions I cannot stop asking because if we neglect them, we lose everything. When do we get to talk about Ladi Ladebo's BC, Daughter of the River, a film that became one of the highest grossing Nigerian movies of the 1970s, yet is barely remembered today? Or Julie Coker, who won the Miss Western Nigerian Beauty Pageant in 1958 and later became a pioneering television presenter on NTA, hosting popular shows like Julie's World. She went beyond television and recorded soulful albums that blended genres like Yoruba folk and jazz. And what about Zeb Ejiro, who helped to shape the Nigerian soap opera format, laying the groundwork for serialized storytelling that would inspire a new generation of Nigerian filmmakers?
So what is the solution? Well, I think I have a suggestion that sounds fun.
Imagine a museum built specifically to preserve and showcase audiovisual arts. And by audiovisual art, I mean films, music recordings, interviews, television broadcasts, radio shows, theatrical performances, documentaries, and just any historic event or moment captured in sound or motion. Now, here's how this museum is going to work. It will be divided into immersive sections, each dedicated to a specific decade, 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, 1980s, and so on. When you walk in, you choose a decade you would love to explore. As you enter, you are surrounded by the music, the cinema, the pop culture, and the political moments that define that era. Each section of the museum is a portal into time, educating visitors with soundscapes, video projections, interactive stations, and curated archives. For example, step into the 1960s and listen to snippets from Fela's first album and experience some of the earliest music recordings from Nigeria. Wander into the 1970s and watch early episodes of The Village Headmaster, one of Nigeria's first TV series. In the 1980s section, you get to sit in a quiet room and listen to a reading from Ken Saro-Wiwa's poetry collection, Song in a Time of War. In the 1990s, you witness the scale and spirit of the Lekki 1988 Holy Ghost Congress, still considered the largest religious gathering ever organized in Nigeria. Move into the 2000s and experience the creativity of the first animated Nigerian music video, Ijoya by Wed MC. The 2010s brings you face to face with history through video footage of the unforgettable NSAS protests. And finally, in the 2020 section, you get to read and listen to snippets of Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's powerful essay, It's Obscene.
By now, I'm sure you have a clear vision of the picture I'm trying to build.
Preserving and showcasing these audiovisual treasures will not come cheap. To sustain the museum, an access fee will be required. This way we can have fun and earn money while preserving Nigeria's history. The audience will be diverse, from young couples looking for a fresh and meaningful way to spend time together, to schools seeking immersive ways to teach students about history and culture, to curious individuals eager to engage with the past through vivid and sensory storytelling, and just explorers of all kinds.
I truly believe that this idea has the potential to entertain and preserve, sort of an interactive archive of Nigeria's audiovisual history through the decades. But before I wrap this video up, I want to give a quick shout out to 3 social media accounts doing fantastic work to archive and showcase Nigeria's history.
Number 1, at Start Archiving on Instagram. These guys are focused on preserving old Nigerian newspapers for posterity. Number 2, Nostalgic Sound TV on YouTube. They post rare television clips from as far back as the 1960s. Number 3, at Nollywood Babes on Instagram. While they are not as consistent as the others, they have a great collection of classic Nollywood clips. So enjoy and thank you for watching this video. I hope it starts a conversation that I think is long overdue.